Quran mentions more than 1400 years ago that the universe was expanding. The following construct the firmament, for it is we who create the vastness of space. Accordingly, this phrase means we are expanding the universe a lot. After analyzing the verse of the Quran informing us about the expansion of the universe, we will examine what science says about it. There was only one view that prevailed regarding the issue up to the beginning of the 20th century. This view stated that the universe had a static structure and that it has existed like that since the beginning of the universe. No scientist mentioned the expansion of the universe until the 20th century, let alone mentioning. No one even imagined it. At the beginning of the 20th century, Russian physicist Alexander Friedmann and Belgian cosmologist Georges Lemaitre calculated theoretically that the universe was moving continuously and expanding. This fact was proven through observation in 1929. While examining the sky through a giant telescope, the American astronomer Edwin Hubble discovered that stars and galaxies continuously moved away from one another. Stars and galaxies moved away not only from us, but also from one another. In the following years, it became certain through observations that the universe was expanding, a universe in which everything continuously moves away from one another means a universe that is continuously expanding. In order to understand the expansion of the universe better, we can think as follows. Suppose that the universe is the surface of an inflated balloon. The points on the balloon move away from one another. Similarly, the objects in the universe move away from one another as the universe expands. When this scientific fact was not known by anyone, and when people thought that the sun was as small as an apple, the Quran mentioned this fact centuries ago, and it stated clearly that the universe was expanding. This clearly was discovered only in the 20th century, existed in a book 14 centuries ago. The Quran draws attention to a very important geological function of mountains. We have set on the earth mountains standing firm, lest it should shake with them. If we pay close attention to the verse, we will see that mountains' property of preventing shocks on earth is mentioned. This fact, which was unknown by anyone during the period when the Quran was revealed, has been exposed as a result of the discoveries of modern geology today. In the past, it was thought that mountains were merely protrusions rising above the surface of the earth. However, scientists noticed that this was not actually the case, and that those parts known as the mountain root sometimes extended down as far as 10 to 15 times their own height. With these features, mountains play a similar role to a nail or peg firmly holding down a tent. For example, Mount Everest, the summit of which stands approximately 9 kilometers above the surface of the earth, has a root deeper than 125 kilometers. Besides, mountains come into existence as a result of the movements and collisions of massive plates forming the Earth's crust. When two plates collide, the stronger one slides under the other. The one on the top rises by bending down and forms the mountains. The layer beneath proceeds under the ground and makes a deep extension downward. Consequently, as stated before, mountains have a portion stretching downwards as large as their visible parts on the earth. Professor Ciavita, a world-renowned underwater geologist, made the following comments in reference to the way that mountains have root-like stalks attaching them to the surface. The fundamental difference between continental mountains and the oceanic mountains lies in its material. However, the common denominator on both is that they have roots to support the mountains. In the case of continental mountains, light low-density material is extended down into the earth as a root. In the case of oceanic mountains, there is light material which supports the mountain as a root. According to the law of Archimedes, the function of the root is to support the mountains. The effect of mountains on general stabilization of the Earth's crust is defined as isostasy. Is the general equilibrium in the Earth's crust maintained by a yielding flow of rock material beneath the surface under gravitational stress. Furthermore, a book titled Earth by Dr. Frank Press, former president of the United States National Academy of Sciences, which is still used as a textbook in a great many universities, states that mountains are like stakes and are buried deep under the surface of the earth. In some verses of the Quran, this role of the mountains is pointed out by a comparison with pegs. Have we not made the earth as a wide expanse, and the mountains as pegs? He set on the earth mountains, standing firm, lest it should shake with you. Now, we are asking those who close their eyes and minds to the sun of the Quran, and who still say that the Quran is the word of a human. How could you explain the Quran's explicit declaration of a scientific fact at a time when there was no science and technology, while this has just been discovered as a result of modern geological and seismic researches? When we observe the universe through the naked eye, we think there is a non-unmoving universe. The immense activities in the universe started to be noticed only after the invention of the telescope. In a very long period of history, people thought the world was not moving and that the sun rotated around the world. Then, in the process that started with Copernic, Kepler, and Galileo, they discovered that the earth rotated around the sun, which remained fixed. This discovery, which is regarded as a revolution, was very important, but it had not yet been discovered that the sun moved on its own orbit. Then, thanks to the advanced telescopes and the development of science, it was understood that the world rotated around the sun, which also moved. The sun moved at a speed faster than 720,000 kilometers per hour, with the planets around it toward the star Vega, on an orbit called the solar apex. This fact, which was discovered only in the last century, was stated by the Quran 1400 years ago. And the sun runs his course for a period determined for him. That is the decree of him, the exalted in might, the all-knowing. It is not permitted to the sun to catch up the moon, nor can the night outstrip the day. Each just swims along in its own orbit, according to law. It is He who created the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. All the celestial bodies swim along each in its rounded course. As we can see it, the Quran stated 1400 years ago that the sun and the stars moved. This proves that the Quran is the word of Allah. The Quran attracts attention to another scientific discovery about the movements of the sun through another verse. The following is stated in verse 5 of the chapter of As-Safat. The Lord of the heavens and the earth, and what is between them, and Lord of the Easts. It is understood from the phrase, the Lord of the Easts, that the sun had more than one rising point. It attracts attention to the fact that the East, which we know as the rising place of the sun, needs to be thought as places, that is, more than one East. Yes, the sun rises every morning and sets every evening. However, these risings and settings take place in a different part of the universe each time. That is, The stars and the planets that float in the sea of the sky do not pass from the same route again. They move on their orbits. The sun, which rises in a place, sets in another place at the same time, since the world is round. The night follows the day, and the day follows the night. Then the rising places of the sun, not the rising place, is in question. The morning time is different for every point of the globe. Every place waits for the sun to rise at a different hour, minute, and second. We watch the sun rise from different places of space. The sun is the same sun, the world is the same world, but the place in space is different. Is the word of Allah, who created the skies, determined routes there, and made the sun and stars move on that routes. 2. Is it possible for a person who lived 1400 years ago and who could not read nor write to discover a fact that was rejected by many scientists who lived before the last century, and that was discovered only in the last century, which was a century of science and technology? Why should Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, make these claims and risk his credibility by opposing the people of that century in a period when almost all of the knowledge about the sky was wrong and superstitious, and when people did not have anything like that on the agenda?